Hey folks, hope this video finds you great. Hope this video finds you well. So it's happened. We finally got the automated dividend tracking portfolio workbook, whatever you want to call it, up and running. And I'm pretty happy about it. I sent it to some of the folks in the WhatsApp group. They haven't complained yet. So I think so far we're in the clear. And tonight I'm going to walk through the tutorial of what this actually does step by step, and actually just double check that I'm recording here. I believe I am. I'm also recording for you guys, so don't be alarmed if I might be going too quickly. Of course, this is live, so feel free to mention something in the comments section, which I have on the right hand side, but I will be walking through the portfolio itself step by step, so that way we can look at things. And at the moment I have the download somewhat empty, so I didn't want to give you guys all my information, what I have invested or what have you. So you'll see at the moment the only things that are really filled in are financials, a little bit of real estate, and healthcare, and what we can do, and also some cash and Fundrise or what have you. But what we can do is, what I was anticipating on doing rather, is saying we buy 100 shares of Exxon and walk through what exactly happens in the spreadsheet. So if you guys are interested in following along with me, the actual spreadsheet is available for download in the link in the top of the chat. But otherwise, you can follow along on the video, and if you decide to eventually download the workbook, you can always start from the beginning. This will be, like I said, live right now, but I'm also recording, and I will upload again, maybe with some editing, for folks to watch at a later time. Now, before we get jumping into this, what I hope that this portfolio does for everybody is really allow themselves to do what I've done and really look at the goals for themselves. And now I currently left my goals in here just because I think that it demonstrates something that you could do for yourself. And I'm not saying that you need to be following my goals. I believe that you honestly need to sit down, look at some of the videos I put in the past about what your true goals are, what you want to do with your portfolio, and input it in here. Some of these things as well you might not necessarily have. I have a bunch of accounts. You might only have one or two because you want to consolidate. I personally am crazy, so I spread my money absolutely everywhere. But you also have the ability to backtrack some of your old data as well if you want to look through old taxes or anything like that to see how you're tracking and how you're growing your portfolio month after month and year after year. So I think at this point we can just dive right into it, and I think what I might do is actually start with downloading the workbook on its own, and really kind to show what you might actually end up needing to do in order to open it. And I won't actually purchase it here per se, because that might actually have to make me go into my email and put in some personal information. So what I'll do is I'll kind of simulate it, and I also have it in my workbook folder that I have. And what I can do is go into my Apple iCloud, which is where you would upload this to, and then show you guys an idea. So with this, you get the workbook that I was just showing you. If you were to go to mattmoney.com or mattmoney.myshopify.com, good evening, and essentially go to the home page. You'll see the two spreadsheets. One is not automated, the other is for purchase. And with that, you'll get two things. You'll get the actual workbook, which I was already kind of showing here, and you'll also get a README file, so that way you can walk through this. And I will be doing this now, but just so you know, you'll have a little bit of a guide for you. It's not sophisticated or anything along those lines, but I think because it's not an Excel workbook and it's an Apple numbers workbook, some of you might be deterred because it's not Excel. I think most of people that follow me are PC users. Now, not saying that because it's Apple numbers, you can't use this on a PC. I'm on a PC, as you can tell right now, and I have Apple numbers open. And you can see that it's as simple as going to iCloud.com. And you don't need an Apple account at the moment to do this. iCloud.com is free if you just want to set it up. It's like creating a Gmail account. You just open it up. You can actually create it with your Gmail account, tag it to your Gmail account, and what have you. So what I'm going to do now is just go into Apple numbers, and as if I downloaded it. But like I said, you'll get the README file. So this is all in the README file. You basically would, I have this already open, but let's go to upload. So what you would do is basically create your iCloud, and then within iCloud, you'll see a bunch of different apps here, and some of them are calendar, some of them are mail. So this is basically your ability to look at all your Apple materials from a desktop, which is kind of nice. But all you would see here is this Apple numbers sheet, and you just click on it. It opens up basically the equivalent of Microsoft Excel on PC. And what it basically does is, I personally have two spreadsheets. This is the tutorial that we're walking through, this investments money V2, and then this is my actual portfolio here. And this is something that Apple has in here already, which I think is really simplistic, but it might also help some of you guys as well. What we're going to do is simulate uploading. So there's these 4 icons up top here. There's creating a new spreadsheet, there's creating folders, then there's also upload and delete. We're going to click on upload here, and we're going to look through the actual file. So what you'll see is that there's investments by Matt Money. You would then extract that, tell it where you want it to be, and what that actually does is it creates a open folder for you, and then you can just double click on this investments by Matt Money V2 numbers. In your case, you would probably open up this README just in case you don't have this video to follow along with, but it's just explaining exactly what we're doing right now. You would click on that, it would load just like this, and you see that it was updated 46 minutes ago. And I already have one very similar to this, V2, and now you could say it's V2 space 2 numbers. And so just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to delete this because I already have it open. Now, like I said, I wanted to walk through this and kind of explain. Like I said, I want to simulate downloading 100 shares of ExxonMobil. So you can kind of see we have, before we jump into that, there are some instructions throughout the workbook itself. So pre-read, so you might want to look at some of those things. There's some legends and keys for you to look at for cells that you should or should not change. And then just like you've seen in the past, there's an overview, the dividends received, goals, and then your monthly dividends. And so we'll start it off here with actually walking through this part of the pre-read. So there are multiple tables in here for multiple different accounts. You can enter or change the names as you see fit. I have things for brokerage account, Roth IRA, but I also have things in there for like Fundrise, Cardone Capital. You might not have those things. I wouldn't recommend deleting them. Maybe I would just change them to account number 4 or 5, because in the future you might actually use them and they're already connected. So instead of erasing them and them having to reconnect, you might as well just keep them. So that way, if you do decide to open up a 3rd account or 4th account, it's already connected and it'll work through the spreadsheet. Things that are automated are these white and gray lines. So these things here. And the only 5 things that you'll mostly need to change are this symbol and this sector. And you'll change this anytime you buy or sell a share originally. So once you purchase this and fill this in, like XOM for Exxon, for instance, and you have energy here, you'll most likely not ever need to change that again unless you sell the document, right? Or you sell the shares, yeah? And that's highlighted in this more grayish here. And then you have the more shares input. So you'd most likely be playing in this space: the shares original, shares now, how much you paid. And the reason being is maybe you are reinvesting your dividends. Like in my Bryn Mawr Bank Corp, I purchased 200 shares, I reinvested dividends, and so you're seeing these fractional shares here. Bank of Nova Scotia had 100 shares, I've reinvested. You're seeing these fractional shares here. And so what you're basically going to be doing is hopefully not having to keep track of the price or keep track of the dividend. You're only going to have to keep track of how many shares you own. And I think that that is the most important part, and actually how much dividends you're coming from there. So it's eliminating the work of owning the portfolio, and it leaves you to looking at the fundamentals, and it has you looking at things that actually matter, like growing your dividends or focusing on what shares you want to purchase next, rather than spending 80% of your time keeping track of the portfolio and analyzing the portfolio. So at this point, every month or so, you can go through here and say, oh, I got more shares here, got more shares here. Do your dividend actuals, which we'll walk through, and Bob's your uncle, you're in the clear. So let's do an example here. We purchased 100 shares of XOM. It's as simple as putting XOM underneath the symbol here in column A, row 8. And you can see as soon as I hit enter, it fills in a decent amount of things for you here. It automatically filled in the ExxonMobil Corporation dividend, current yield. It's waiting for some of this other information from you to be able to fill in the rest of the table here. But you can also see a little bit off the screen here, there's 1 year price target just based off of some of the analysts, how much it's off that 1 year price target. So a negative or a positive number means it's 11% off of that. A negative number means that actually that value is going to come down. Maybe analysts are expecting it to actually go down. 52-week low, this is what the lowest price has been in the last 52 weeks. 52-week high, you guys are familiar with that. So that way you can kind of understand where your stocks are. If you have, say, $5,000 coming into the portfolio, where do you think your most undervalued stock is if you want to add within your portfolio? And of course, you can always do what you're doing outside of the portfolio if you want to add another position like we are doing as an example right now. So we're adding 100 shares, and you can automatically see the price shows up here at $71.48. And let's just assume we purchase shares at $75. And now we own 105 shares just through dividend reinvestment and things along those lines. Actually, let's just assume we purchased that at the 52-week low at around $64. So we'll say we purchased it at $64.65, just so we can kind of see what ends up happening. You can see just from entering these 3 columns here, the original, column A, column F, column G, column H, we now have a whole bunch of data that has been backfilled for us and would change if we were doing this live between the hours of 9:30 Eastern time and 4:30 or 4 o'clock Eastern time. You would actually be seeing these values constantly updating, your market value constantly updating, your gains constantly updating, your dividend total would never really change unless there's a dividend increase or you purchase more shares. But maybe your yield on cost and your current yield would be changing depending on what the price goes up to. Yeah. So you can see the only other column we might have to do is if this column was blank, we're now going to fill it with energy, but I had it filled in. I didn't erase the old stocks that I had in here. So luckily for you, it was already on energy. And now what we would basically see is we can see now that the increase in the cash flow went from around $90 or so up to $114. And let's just do a quick estimate here. So what we're showing is up here where the actual portfolio annual cash flow comes in. If we were to erase this, you can see, it's actually down to $84 here and almost $1,000 a year. Now that we added this, we're getting another $300 or so in annual cash flow, $365 to be exact, and increasing our monthly cash flow by almost $30 a month. So really cool. And this is kind of what you can utilize to start understanding what your forward income is going to look like. Now, what you can now see is if we go to, say, overview, we can immediately see that the energy column here, which was previously empty, is now filled at 4.9%. And you can see that the income for this is automatically coming into here, whereas before it was at 0. The value is currently in here because we have 100 shares of Exxon now. And how much of your portfolio is also in here. And you can see how much of the yield by sector is. So you can see only 15% of your value of the portfolio is within energy, but you're actually getting 26% of your income from that. So pretty significant change there. So yeah, you can scroll over if you wanted to. You'd actually be able to see this on one page if I didn't have this chat over here to the right. But another thing that you can also look at, going back to where we were, is you have a place to put 401k income, dividend portfolio, and luckily maybe you have a self-directed 401k and you can actually put that within the portfolio piece. I mean, that's completely optional as well. At the moment, we just have really one column or one table in here. But like I said, there's multiple tables just from things that I've had. I have my YouTube Moolah table, my Roth IRA table, even have my M1 Finance computer shares. I switched one of them to account number 5, my old share value package. So there's like 8 or 9 different accounts that you can have within here that are already connected up for you guys. So feel free to mess with that. But like I said, I wouldn't recommend deleting them just because there's formulas within here. If you change the title of the table, it's not going to be a big deal because it'll automatically change for you. It's just like Excel in that respect. But if you do delete the table, it will form an error. So I just recommend keeping the tables and leaving them empty if you're not planning on using them. So another thing that you can see is, the income that you're going to be getting from the portfolio, just like you were seeing on the first page, pretty readily. So you see the $114 a month here, $114 a month here. I have a check built in, so in case any of your value is off, you could also build one in for this, but you could easily just cycle between the portfolio and overview tabs to make sure that these are relatively similar in case maybe you accidentally mess with the formula or what have you. So the cool thing is that I have this now on my phone. So I don't know if you can download it on Android, but I have an iPhone, and if I knew how to, I guess, live share my iPhone, I can now, like, if I'm in the middle of a meeting or something like that, which I don't say I do this, disclaimer if anyone from work is listening to this, but if I'm in a meeting, now I can literally pull it up on my phone and look at my portfolio on my phone wherever I'm at. If I'm at lunch and I want to look at it, if I have time to then add how much dividends or how much my shares have increased due to reinvested dividends, I can do that on the go now. I don't have to be at a PC like I used to in order to do this. So that's really nice. I could, because it's on iCloud and it's constantly in the cloud, I could do it on my work computer, I could do it on my PC, I could do it, from anywhere that I have an internet connection, which makes it nice. I don't have to be on my PC like I used to when I had it on the non-automated version that you're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen now. So now gets to the fun part, because this is kind of a little bit behind the scenes aspect of how you can actually calculate things. But you can see that here's the dividends received table. So at the moment I have it set up for 2019 and 2020 dividends. But basically how I do this is, what I'll do is, I know for a fact that Exxon pays on a certain date. I don't remember what date, but we'll have to check that, and I can kind of show you what I do, the steps that I do in order for you to kind of be able to set this up. But at the moment, unfortunately, this doesn't automatically set up the dividends for you. It pulls the name over for you instantly. So XOM, we entered that. I didn't enter that beforehand. You can see it's a formula here pointing to the individual brokerage account for yourself. But it's relatively simple. Within this table here, you can kind of see the inputs here that are highlighted in red are historical data. So if you click on them, they're actual values. They're not formulas. But if you click on the black, these are the forecasted data that you're expecting in, say, 2019. And if you scroll down to a little bit further, you can see that this is the 2020 table. All the values here are black because all of them are forecasted. None of them are actuals to date. If you can somehow get your 2020 dividends in 2019, let me know. We can get very, very rich together. So this is basically the most manual process now that you'll have to do, whereas before I felt like the most manual process was the portfolio tab, this tab where you had to make sure all your dividends were up to date and everything like that. If you get a dividend increase now, it's automatic. As long as it shows up on the New York Stock Exchange, it'll show up. Although I will caveat that if you have someone like Main Street Capital, you will have to somewhat manipulate it because they don't have systematic dividends, yeah? So they have the 2 special dividends a year. So if you know a company, say like Ford, who has been doing special dividends that are somewhat unannounced every couple months, they have their normal 10-cent dividend, but then every couple months, or is it 15 cents? I don't remember. But every couple months, they give a 40-cent dividend. That 40 cents isn't going to be counted in here. So like my BHP dividend, when I got the special dividend in January, that wouldn't show up. Yeah, so it's only scheduled dividends that are normal. Yeah, so as long as the company announces it that the dividends are going up, it'll change. But if it's a special dividend, it won't capture that. So just keep that in mind. That's the only caveat to this being automated here. So let's look at how I would fill this out for Exxon. So you can kind of see I have the formula in here for you already, just as an idea, but it's relatively simple. If you know what table you're in or value you're looking at, you can easily kind of estimate where it's going to be. You just type in what account it is, double colon, and just based off of what we have here, that the dividends are in column N, just because I have it kind of noted up here for you. And so at the moment you'll see that this is in black, or in red, sorry, and it's also pointing to row 3. But I just did that for ease. We can go back and just double check what column this actually is in. So we're looking for the total dividend column here. We know that we're in column N and we are in row 8. So instead of this 3, which we currently have up here, we're actually going to come down to column 8. So now we'll go back to dividends received and just change this to an 8. And now we kind of have an idea as to what we should be getting on a quarterly basis. And you can see I divided this by 4 because what it has currently on the table that we are referencing is the total dividend per year, and what we're looking for is the quarterly dividend and when it's going to happen. So at the moment I just have this in January, but what I would probably do is go to something like dividend.com, and hopefully this doesn't make me look like a fool, because sometimes when I open up dividend.com it makes me look like a fool. So you can see annualized payout here is 348, and you can kind of see when the previous dividends are. So the ex-dividend date was in August here, not too long ago, but when were the actual payouts? And I think this is when it makes me look like a fool. Okay, here's the actual payout. So the declared date was at the end of July. The ex-dividend date was in August. The actual pay date here is on the third quarter, or third month of every quarter. So your Marches, your Junes, your Septembers, and Decembers. So I would go back to here and I would copy this formula here. And that's what these dollar signs are for. So if you wanted to click and drag and then delete as expected, you could. but I generally keep the dollar signs in here so that way I don't have to worry about it. If you know, because if you don't, then sometimes your formula changes a little bit. But anyway, that's what it is. But we know that since we just invested and it's September, and the ex-dividend date for the third quarter was at the end of July, we won't get this payment. We won't get this payment because these months already passed and these dividends already passed. But what we do know is we will get them for 2020 unless Exxon, something drastic happens and unfortunately misses their dividend payment. So we know at the moment that the forecast will be for Exxon to pay in 2020. So at the moment, we'll get $91 in December from Exxon, and then we'll get the other 4 dividend payments next year. Now, because this is referencing this initial portfolio table, and generally speaking, if companies are consistent, they won't change what months they're actually, changing their dividend payments. Say Exxon raises their dividend again to say $95 per share per quarter. This would automatically change to 95 whenever they decide to do that. I think they decided to do that in generally the third quarter. So next year, you'll probably get a $91 dividend payment in March, one in July, or June rather. But this will also change if you were to, say, reinvest your dividends as well. So for instance, let's reinvest our dividends for the next couple quarters. We'll end up with another 5 shares. You can see that the actual, let me get rid of this formatting thing here. We got ourselves like another $1.50 in dividend income with that, and we went from the $3.60 or so total annual dividend to about $3.82. And if you go to dividends received, it went from $91 per forecast to $96 on a quarterly forecast, automatically changing that. And so you'll see, so that's relatively it with respect to getting yourself filled out. And I would say the most tedious part would be is if you have a decent portfolio and you're starting from scratch, it might take a little bit of time, but the most tedious part would be really, I mean, we showed how relatively simple it was to fill in these 5 columns. This column will hopefully never change unless the company drastically changes the direction of where they're going. And hopefully this ticker won't change unless you sell the stock. So it's really just focusing on then these 3 columns, and really everything else except for this dividends received kind of goes into its own sort of autopilot rather. And this overview will change automatically. This goals and actuals will change automatically. It's tied to, say, specific parts of your portfolio. You might have to adjust what columns it's actually looking at. If you have more or less columns in your IBA, that's one thing to keep in mind as well. At the moment, it is tagged to certain parts in the dividends received, so it might not necessarily be those specific columns that you would look at. But I think that this is also important to look at, because if you go to dividends received and you have that, you can kind of go to your monthly dividend. You can compare your 2019 versus 2020 number. And you can see, for instance, in our Marches, June, September, and December, that our dividend payments are drastically higher because in March, June, September, and December, because we've added shares of Exxon and we only have 1 quarter's worth of dividend payments going ahead for next year. So you can see that March is going to be a relatively large year, or large for next year, and we've got barely any income. So you can see here that we have over a 5,000% increase year over year, and also for June another 700%. September is 200%, and December is about even, because we were like we saw, you're going to be getting Exxon shares in this example in both Decembers, December 2019 and 2020. And so I already have it set up for 2021 as well, so you can compare how your year over year is going to continue to grow. But I think that the most important thing and the most important part of this tab is once you kind of get your portfolio in here, this is, I would say, the places where I focus most of my energy during the month when it's not updating dividend time and it's not adding new shares to the portfolio. I would say I spend most of my time in this overview tab to see that I'm diversifying my portfolio and making sure that I'm not over allocating to things. You guys know that I over allocate to my energy stocks. I try to look at my dividend yield, my yield on cost. Is my yield on cost going up? Is it going down? Is my dividend yield too high, which I believe mine is at the moment at about 4.7%. In this particular case, it's around 2.7. It's relatively stable because we have some good high quality, more long-term dividend paying stocks in this example portfolio here. Excuse me, messed up there. But what I would focus most of my time on now that I have an established portfolio is this dividend progress tab. This place where you can really start to analyze where your actuals are and where you're trying to get to. Because I think a lot of times what we do is we focus on the 6 months out, 1 year out, but I think this tab, and of course I'm still expanding on this tab and I'm still trying to grow this tab, but really trying to understand where you're going to get to. If you're consistent, if you're following your trend lines, if you're consistent, you're continuing to add to the portfolio, you can really start to understand where you're going to get in 5, 10, 15 years. So like I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you want to follow along directly with with what we're showing here, there's a link up top in the live chat and also in the description, hopefully, of this video, describing where you can actually purchase and download the spreadsheet that we're kind of going through, and hoping that you do that so that way you can kind of get involved and get into the nitty-gritty and have any questions, and also decide to build one on your own and build with me. So if you have any suggestions, you can let me know and I can implement it for others to use as well. But actually diving back into this annual goals versus progress and your dividend progress, you can see that this tracks directly with your dividends received over a course of time. At the moment, since we're starting in 2019, this is all historical data that I've backfilled because I'm too lazy personally to go into my old non-automated dividends received and pull over month by month what I received and when. I don't think it's necessarily important because at that point I think I'm getting too much into the grains. I'd rather focus on year over year growth. Looking specifically at 2019, 2020 going forward, you can see that it's kind of connected up into the dividends received tab for you. You can understand and see where your total actuals are. At the moment, say for 2019, we're looking at 747 in total dividends received. So if you go back to dividends received, you can see this is 747 here. And then for 2020, it should be about 1392, which corresponds to, because we haven't started 2020 yet, to what is in this portfolio tab here, 1392, and what's also in this overview tab, this 1392. And then you can also see that in the goals and actuals tab, this 1392. And based off of this, you can kind of get an understanding as to where you are in terms of your previous income. You could see that it was tracking my old progress here. So within your download, you would also see your actual progress as well, my previous progress as well. Feel free to upload this with your individual progress so you can create your own graphic. But what you currently see in here is the forecasts as well as the actuals in here. And with that, you have this dividend growth tab here. At the moment, I have it set at about a 27% increase year over year. You can personally change it to 10%, 5%, for whatever your goals are. So for instance, I want to make, let's say, $850 this year, and next year I just want to make $1,000. And you can see it's going to drop off drastically because I have some actuals in here. So let me get rid of these, say we're starting from scratch again. And have some old stuff in here from like YouTube income as well. Let me get rid of this and this, so we're kind of looking apples to apples here. And kind of scroll up so you can kind of see. So at the moment, this total actuals here is kind of what we have in the portfolio. Then we also have the goal in green. And you can see on a monthly basis where we're looking at, we're trying to get to just over $62 this year, or we're at $62 this year a month, and we're trying to get to $71. And so for instance, next year we want to get to say $1,200 a month, and then we really want to try to get that to increase, let's just say 10% per year. And so that way we can, oops, messed that up here. Sorry about that. Really want to increase that, say 10% per year. And so put it in there, click and drag. And that way you can kind of focus. You can kind of understand where you're trying to get to. You can see, for instance, based off of your totals between this year and next year, it looks like you're already going to get way above your goals for the year, so it's probably worthwhile to readjust, say $1,500 for next year, and that would readjust your goal. Maybe it flattens out, but your year-over-year growth is pretty massive, yeah. So really might want to look specifically at what this year-over-year growth is and see if you can continue that, so that way you can try your best and try to continue to increase, and not say spend more money because you've already hit your goal for the year. I think this tab isn't to do that. This tab is to focus on you looking at what you can achieve and pushing yourself to the furthest you can so you can get further. My hope is that you're not just putting in abnormal dividend increases like 100%, where you say multiply this by 2 and try to reach that every single year. It's unsustainable to try to do that. You can kind of see just based off that, like, I mean, maybe you're investing enough, but you can see in the next couple of years you're already way off track. So anyway, I think that's relatively it. So unless anybody has questions, suggestions, or anything like that, like I said, there's small advice and tips within here that folks can look at to help guide themselves, and really curious what folks are thinking. Like I said, if you guys haven't yet, feel free to look up top. There's a link where you can download this, and really curious to get some feedback from folks. I've already sent this to some of the folks in the WhatsApp group, and they haven't given me too much negative feedback yet, just some little clarification things which I've added into the most recent download for you guys on the Shopify store. So really curious what other features you would want into the spreadsheet. I can build that for you. Open your minds, think about what you would want. I can try my best to really try to implement things if you're not as savvy, say, with Excel or savvy with Apple numbers. I can try my best. I'm still learning Apple numbers a little bit. It's not too different from Excel, but I can try my best. If you have an idea to build something for you, we can have a conversation. And of course, with that idea, I would give that to you for free, for sure. If you have an idea that then gets put into, say, the workbook. But I advise you first, before you just start trying to get a free workbook, that you Of course, download it first, mess with it, live with it for a couple days, see if it's something that you really need. If it is, let me know. We can build it in for you, but not going to just add something in so that way you get a free workbook. I really want you guys to try to get involved, make your lives a little bit easier, focus less about trying to keep track of your dividends in a poorly managed spreadsheet. Like I said, this has been, since 2013 I've been managing my workbooks, and this is about, I guess, 6 or so years of experience tracking these at the moment. So you're getting about 6 years worth of experience and 6 years worth of trial and error in this sort of workbook. It's not just something I put together haphazardly. I mean, you guys have been with me since I've been recording it in late 2016. The different variations and things that I've added every year, I generally add one more additional thing that has really helped get it from where it was today to where it was. It used to be something called portfolio. Now it's, you see this tab's called portfolio formatted. So it's like, every single time I sit around, think about things to try to make my life easier. I used to track the dividends like this, so that way I could color things in. Then I switched it to something that's more like a table like this. And now you can see that that was really manual, and now it's something that's very, very automated. So now I can focus less on making sure that the dividend increases in there. I get a message from, say, Philip Morris saying, hey, we increased the dividend from $1.07 per quarter to $1.14. I don't have to go into the portfolio tab and automatically put it in there. It's automatic. And Exxon, for instance, did a dividend raise this last quarter. It wasn't me trying to scavenge and see, is this the most recent dividend? We opened up this here, and we saw that at the very top, this is paying $3.48 annualized payout. And like you guys saw, just by deleting this, it all goes away if you get rid of it, right? So, it's simple for you. And then as soon as you hit XOM, it automatically looks everything up for you, and boom, you're in the money. You got your current yields, your yield on cost. All you have to manage is these 3 columns and your dividends received, and you're set. You can focus on the things that matter, like diversifying your portfolio, making sure you're putting the money in the right places rather than consistently worrying about updating your spreadsheet. So like I said, hope this video finds you great. Hope this video finds you well. And if you have any questions, I'll probably stay on for a little bit, but can't guarantee that that will be in the video that I'll release. So I'll stay on for a little bit if anybody has questions. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks for stopping by. For those of you that are going to sign off because you don't have any questions, thanks, and I'll talk to you guys soon.